Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Wednesday, November 6th. I'm Mark Dent, here with Rob Litterst, and this is the Hustle Daily Show. So it's the morning after Election Day, and if you're looking to refresh yourself with some non-election news, we do have a whopper of a business story for you today. It's about the rise of massive televisions. We are talking about 97 inches or even larger. According to CNN, these TVs are expected to be a hot ticket item for the holidays, which could be a boon not just for the TV makers, but for electronics retailers. So we're going to get to that in a bit, but first, let's give you the hits and headlines in business and tech. Speaking of the election for a bit, we're recording this on Tuesday, so we can't say who won or if there's even a clear winner yet. But regardless, the next few days could be choppy for the crypto market. During the campaign, of course, major crypto investors largely backed Donald Trump. Now, according to the New York Times, the research firm Bernstein has forecasted that a Trump victory could lead to Bitcoin rising as high as $80,000 or $90,000 per coin. And a Harris victory could lead to a drop around $50,000. Over the last few days, Bitcoin was trading around $67,000. As for the stock market, though, the Dow Jones was up around 1% at the end of trading on Tuesday, and most analysts expect that stocks will again go up today, regardless of the winner. However, there is an exception to that. If there is not a clear winner, then it could be a little bit harder to predict. All right, moving on. Some big news for Boeing. The strike is over. Machinists and aerospace workers agreed to a new deal with the airplane manufacturer that will raise wages 43% over the next 4 years. The strike had been going on since mid-September and had basically prevented Boeing from producing new aircraft. In the restaurant business, if you like TGI Fridays or Applebee's, you might want to pay them a visit. According to the Washington Post, sit-down family chain restaurants are going through some very difficult times. Just a couple of data points. TGI Fridays, as you might have heard, filed for bankruptcy just a few days ago. That follows Red Lobster and Buca di Beppo, which had also filed for bankruptcy earlier this year. Also this year, the stocks for the parent companies of Cracker Barrel, Denny's, IHOP, and Applebee's are all down by at least 35%. Not good times, Rob.
No, not good times at all. I think this is interesting with TGI Fridays and Applebee's. I feel like there are a lot of implications here that are really kind of hurting them. First of all, I think, neither of them are really known for being health conscious. And I think today's consumer is way more health conscious than maybe 20 years ago when they were in their heyday. So TGI Fridays, Applebee's, Chili's, some of the other restaurants that you listed, I think are fighting against a current that is kind of going against the type of food that they serve.
I mean, Cracker Barrel's got a lot of gravy. You got to get gravy if you go there.
That is true. I mean, they have a real identity. I think one thing that's interesting about some of these restaurants is we have local spots where I live that sell very, very similar food, but in a healthier way. And so I feel like people are more likely to pick the health conscious option or just go to kind of like a local spot that's more like a diner, drive-ins and dives type spot, like one of their home favorites.
Yeah, I know. I think a lot of it is just sort of like the sign of the times, trends change.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple generations ago, there weren't any of these restaurants.
No.
Or at least not wide-scale chains, So I do think it's just sort of a changing of the guard. One other local note, in my hometown of Kansas City, the top Applebee's franchisee actually just filed for bankruptcy not long ago.
Wow.
So that led to the closure of 8 Applebee's restaurants. And now there are only 2 left in a metro area of 2.3 million people. So
that's crazy.
I know.
The only other factor that I would wonder here, Mark, is how much their success is tied to changing retail patterns. Because I feel like TGI Fridays and Applebee's are like perfect mall restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like with the advent of Amazon and just how much people just order things rather than go out and shop, like that could be driving this as well.
Absolutely. Let's stick into the kind of food and drink space because there is some news about liquor, which is that Americans think it's getting really expensive, too expensive for that matter. According to CNN, companies like Remy Cointreau, Anheuser-Busch, and Proximo Spirits, which is the parent of Jose Cuervo, have recently seen sales decline. And alcohol sales overall are down about 3% in the first 7 months of this year. Obviously, this is the time of season when people start drinking more alcohol, so maybe that will change. But this kind of goes against what we'd seen from the last couple of years, where a lot of people started drinking more, particularly during the pandemic days.
That's interesting. The jump in drinking during the pandemic was kind of surprising to me. Not really because of just how wild the pandemic was, but in the context of how drinking has definitely been less popular with younger generations. I remember when I was younger and, going through high school and college and stuff, drinking was just such a cultural thing for young kids. And I feel like, again, going back to kind of like the healthier habits and just kind of changes in how people think about this stuff, it really seems like Gen Z is not as interested in drinking, at least as millennials were. This is interesting. And I wonder if the raised prices have to do with just less demand. Like, I wonder if that's literally what these brands are doing, is just trying to account for the fact that they're not selling as much as they used to.
To kind of connect these two stories, Applebee's, the $1 margaritas. Ooh. So they're trying to get people with the cheap liquor. All right. So maybe that's how we can get alcohol sales up and family chain restaurants to go back, I suppose. Just more of that.
That's funny because that's like the inverted strategy, right? Like, isn't food usually the loss leader for drinks in a lot of restaurants?
Yes, absolutely.
Valiant effort, Applebee's.
Yeah. $1
Yeah. I hope it works.
Finally, Home Depot announced Tuesday that the hardware store's co-founder, Bernard Marcus, died. He was 95 years old. The first Home Depot store opened in 1978. And according to the Wall Street Journal, Marcus and his co-founder, Arthur Blank, would try to lure customers to the store by having their family members go out in Atlanta, which is where the store was, and they'd offer people a dollar bill just to get them to come in.
Love that. Home Depot has one of the truly unique retail experiences to me. I still love going into a Home Depot store just because it's just kind of such a monstrosity and just like such an interesting place. I brought my son there this summer when I was going to get something, and he sat on a lawnmower and was checking that out. He was like super interested in the grills. He wanted to touch all the different types of tape and stuff like that. Like, you never know what's going to be really interesting to a little kid when you walk into Home Depot.
Right. It's truly a store that makes everyone feel small.
With smaller budgets, shorter timelines, and sky-high expectations, growth is feeling pretty painful right now. But HubSpot is here to help. They just announced more than 200 major product updates that'll make impossible business growth feel impossibly easy. Like Breeze, HubSpot's suite of new AI tools that help you say goodbye to busy work and hello to better work. There's Breeze Copilot, a sidekick to assist you with all your tasks and boost productivity, Breeze Agents to automate manual, time-consuming work and add expertise, and Breeze Intelligence to give you the richest, most comprehensive picture of your prospects which are most likely to become loyal customers. They've also reimagined their marketing and content hubs with all new ways to create breakthrough content, updated features to generate better leads, and lots more to up-level your marketing and your revenue forecast. Get ready for growth without the growing pains. Visit HubSpot.com/spotlight to see them all and demo for yourself.
So let's move on to our main story, which is also in the retail space. Massive televisions. You can never have a large enough TV, it seems. This year, televisions that are 97 inches or larger are expected to be huge holiday purchases, huge gifts, and it could help change the fortunes of stores like Best Buy. So Rob, what are we talking about here? How much of an increase have we seen in the sales of these large TVs?
So for TVs that are 97 inches or larger, sales are up 877% year over year. According to research firm Circana, for TVs that are just kind of big, sales are up 19%. And that's for TVs that are 75 to 96 inches. These TVs are nuts. Like, this is absolutely huge to me. I do have a personal story that kind of aligns with this.
Oh, please tell us.
My son is 3. He was playing with his little railroad and he was grabbing one of his pieces of railroad and he swung it and hit our TV. And we had this old, like 40-inch TV. We're not fancy. And he cracked the screen and the screen immediately went black and stopped working. So I was so bummed out about this. He's too young to really understand that, like, when you break something like that, you need to pay money to get a new one and it's kind of a big deal and blah, blah, blah. So we didn't really know how to message it. But then I went on Amazon to see what a new TV would cost. And it is ridiculous how cheap TVs are now.
I know.
I legitimately could not believe it. We got a new 50-inch TV for like $150 or something like that.
Unbelievable. And that's what I think is really fascinating about this story from CNN. Like you were saying, there is like 97 inches or larger, sales up nearly 900%. And we're not talking about cheap TVs here. You know, these aren't the $150 TVs. These aren't even $500. These aren't even $1,000.
No.
At Best Buy, these large TVs tend to range in price from around $1,700 to just under $3,000. TVs, they've become famous, like you said, for getting cheap.
Yeah.
But it just seems like there is this true desire for something that is frankly otherworldly.
Yeah. First of all, I don't even know where I would put a TV this big. Like the wall where our TV is, I legitimately don't think would fit a TV this big.
Yeah. It's got to be tough to mount that thing.
Totally. So you almost certainly need to have a professional come in to mount it.
And Best Buy is offering free installation.
Got it. That would make a ton of sense that they would have a professional come in and do it, because
Yeah.
I would not trust myself to lift something that heavy. That's crazy. Second thing, it makes decorating that room a lot easier. All of a sudden, you don't have to do any decorating for that wall. Like that wall is basically your TV wall. That's all there is to it. Maybe you have enough room for a little TV stand or table or something like that underneath it.
Yeah,
you know.
you're sounding like a true bachelor here, Rob.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, like that would not surprise me if that's the kind of target persona for these purchases. The bachelor who has some disposable income and is looking to just have the biggest TV possible for game night. The last implication, I think this is bad news for the movie theaters.
Yeah.
It's basically like having a theater in your house. Another kind of tough for the movie business.
This does sound like just another reason to stay in, especially if you're going to be paying $2,000, $3,000 for it. You got to save on the back end, right? By not going to the movie theater
Yeah.
or maybe even to a sports game or something like that. Yeah. And just one other thing I wanted to trot out here is that, I mentioned that Best Buy is kind of having some of these deals where they're offering the free delivery and installation. This could be a really big deal for them during the holiday season. Rob, you and I have talked on here, not just today, but in the past about how department stores and just changing habits and everything else. I think like if one of these stores can really kind of stand out by having this kind of product that you can't just buy everywhere, and by offering these sort of extra services with it, like that's going to be something that could really carry them over the next couple months and maybe take them to better sales than everyone would anticipate.
I think that's a really interesting take too, because we talked about this a couple weeks ago and how Kmart started to allow people to return Amazon goods at their store, right? It's like any trip into a store is a potential opportunity to sell them something else. So for Best Buy, if they're getting these customers into the store for these massive purchases, the price of everything else all of a sudden looks a lot smaller. And all of a sudden there's opportunities to run promotions and potentially get people to pick up even more when they come in. So very, very interesting take. I like that theory, Mark.
Yeah. All right. Well, one more thing before we let you go. I just want to add that if you look at historic prices for televisions, like when color TVs were first starting to come out, or at least becoming very mainstream in the 70s, TVs back then, it wasn't unusual for them to cost around $300 to $400, which is about $2,500 in today's dollars.
Crazy.
So these new big TVs, again, 97 inches or so. Back then, they were like 15 or 20, but about the same price.
Crazy.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us today. So thank you, everybody, for tuning into the Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of the HubSpot Podcast Network. Our editor today is Robert Hartwig, and our executive producer is Darren Clark. We have a lot more tech and business coverage in our newsletter. So if you're not subscribed, please go get signed up at thehustle.co/email, and we will see you tomorrow.
Hi, everyone. It's Michael Calore, Director of Consumer Tech and Culture at Wired, here with my colleagues, senior writer Lauren Good.
Hello.
And Wired contributor Zoe Schiffer.
Hey, everyone.
We're here to tell you about our new podcast, Uncanny Valley, a show about the people, power, and influence of Silicon Valley.
Every week, we get together to talk about how technology and culture from the Valley is influencing our everyday lives.
We dig into questions like, will we ever get our privacy back? Is OpenAI for real? And how are Silicon Valley billionaires impacting U.S. elections?
The first episode of Uncanny Valley comes out on October 31st. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.